onto YouTube. All right, I'm recording. Okay, I'll give it another minute or so. Does anybody have anything special you want me to talk about? You know, as long as it's something to do with reflections, because that's what we're going to talk about here. Or really anything. I tend to ramble about anything anyway.
Your work is amazing. I'm excited to see how you do reflections. So thank you for that.
Well, like I was telling Kelly, when I'm all done, it's going to be like knowing how Penn and Teller takes the rabbit out, and you're going to go, oh, that was so easy. And look at all the mistakes, because I'm going to point out some big mistakes on how to do this.
But, sorry, Dave, I'm back, but I think you're good to go.
Yeah, I'm on record and everything. So
Carrie asked for water reflection.
Oh, I don't do those. Water reflections, it's actually really the same kind of thing, except you have to, there's a way to squiggle a reflection to make it look like water. That part I've never done. I've got a friend who, he takes all of his models and puts them knee deep in water. And I'm going, why do you do that? It's like a foot fetish thing, except it's a water fetish thing, I think. I don't know. But he sent me big long lists of how to do it, and I don't want to do that. But yeah, it's just a matter of making it ripple, and then the hard part is the horizon part, because you've got to put water if you're going to have a horizon behind them. Basically, I just shoot them in the water. It's Arizona. Anytime you say you want to shoot in the water, they're ready for that.
So in Adobe, in one of those add-ons of Photoshop, you'd be interested to know. I did some investigation. They actually have an action. I'm not sure if this one's free or not. I went and got it. I don't know if I paid $3.99 or something like that. It does water reflections as an action. It's like a multi-step process, but it is insane how well it does. It's just an action. So it has so I can put a link to it or something like that, but it does exceptional job on water reflections, but it's an action.
I would think that you could put in a reflection like we're going to do, and then just take the either the smudge tool or the liquify, and just wiggle back and forth in front of it and work your way down, and you're going to
this uses an actual real water layer over the top that gives a more realistic look of water. It's pretty awesome, Dave.
Yeah, I've seen it a bunch of times. I think I may have only done one water thing a long time ago. Actually, in the process of looking for all of these pictures, because I'm going to show you 40-some pictures, and some of them are real reflections, some of them aren't, and we're going to talk about how to look for ways to do real reflections too. And I'll show you mistakes in the reflections that we see, and then I'll show you how to do some reflections. I found one of my favorite ones, which I only did recently. But digging through all of them, the further back I went, the worse they got. I went, oh my God, it's one of those pay your dues things. You have to do terrible to start with, and then you work your way from there. You don't do it perfectly, right away. I've had people say, I'm going to sell my cameras and get out of it. But you've only been doing it for 2 months. Yeah, but I'm not famous yet. No, it takes a few years, of constant passion and work. So anyway, it's 5 minutes after, so I'm going to get started. I'm going to just go through a few pictures here. It's not really a show and tell thing, but I'll point out some things I did and didn't do. This particular one right here, obviously I did the background and all that too, and I did a reflection thing, and I blurred it just a little bit, but this is an actual reflection that I did on her. And I'll show you how to do this kind of thing, but it's tough when you do a reflection, and I'll probably repeat this pretty often. You have to make sure this is in line right here. If it's not in line, it's a lot harder to do. Let's say her feet were in front and the guitar was even further in front. You would actually have to do the reflection thing and edit in the reflection for her feet, then do it again and put in the guitar, and then take out the feet to make them work. So if you can get them all in line, it's perfect. Also, you'll notice on almost all of the reflections, it's pretty obvious I'm on the floor or very, very close to the floor. Now, here's the reason for that. First of all, you'll get this line, which is what you need. I think I had her move the guitar until it lined up like it was supposed to. But think about it. If you're looking at a reflection from above, okay, you're seeing a reflection of the model from below. Okay, so you're looking, that reflection is an image of her from below. So if you just flip her around and put her on there, it's not going to look right at all, because it's just going to be a mirror image of her, but at that angle, it's wrong. You're not looking up at her like you would be. So the closer you get to the floor, the more that those two are supposed to look like that, the way that reflection would look anyway. Plus, it's a lot easier because you've got that line to work with. So you have to think about it when you're doing the reflections and see, just, you think, well, okay, I'm going to do a reflection in this one. How should I be doing this in order to do it right? Okay. No, and I want to apologize in advance if anyone chooses to be offended by a little nudity. I tried really hard, but you know, for me, it's hard. I had to leave out half of the pictures because, well, there were things in it that, you know, aren't for public consumption or mixed company. Anyway, this one right here, it was very simply done. I just took the one picture, copied it, flipped it over, and then made it really, really light. Now, here's something else to think about. As I lit them up, it's all lit on the wall. The wall is lit up. You're not going to have a reflection on a place that's lit up like that. That's normal for that, because if I lit them from further back behind them, this would be darker, and then the reflection would work. Here it works. As the wall gets darker, then it'll be a reflection of them. But since the light's on it here, it's washed out the reflection. So when you're doing it and it shows up like that, it's okay. It looks just fine that way. It'll still play with their eyes. Now, we're going to edit this one. This one was pretty amazing to do. It's exactly what I wanted, but I didn't know that's what I was going to get when I took it. The blinds on her, by the way, were right here. They were no more than a foot away from her. Okay. The light, on the other hand, was 20 feet back. And if anybody's shot through blinds before, I do, when I'm giving a class, I do a trick question on them. I say, okay, this is what we want. Go ahead and you set it up. And they'll put a big modifier on it and they'll set it all up. And then of course there's no lines. And that's because you don't get shadows like this on a cloudy day. So you've got to have sharp light. So I'll put a light 20 feet back, crank it up all the way, take off the modifiers. So it's a little pin light, and that's what I get. And then I take out the blinds to really throw everybody off, because you can see the shadow of the blind, but the blind isn't there. But anyway, in making the copy, the reflection of her, it was simple, getting it back here. What I should have taken out was probably all of this, because that isn't really needed. This shouldn't have been, it shouldn't have really been in it. Probably would have made it a little nicer because of that. This one's a double one. And, you know, there's no way that's going to, you know, look exactly right, but it makes the image look good. This is another one that we'll actually work on a little bit later. You notice something about this one?
Yeah, her head's changed.
Yeah, it's the easiest thing to do. I'll be laying on the floor and I'll tell the model, I'll say, okay, I'm going to take 2 pictures. I want you to look at me for one and look forward or look up, or it depends. I make them look up if they have a lot of hair behind them, because that looks kind of cool. And I'll go click, click, and I've got what I need. And then I put them together. And we'll actually do that today. It's not any different. It's just a matter of taking 2 pictures to do it. Okay. They didn't come in any kind of order. This picture here turned out okay. And the story behind this picture is I'd been waiting all day to shoot with her. Another photographer had her for the whole day. I had 20 minutes before we had to go to the airport. And I took an amazing number of awesome pictures of her in the 20 minutes. And the photographer that had her all day long didn't get anything he wanted. That same one with a reflection, I think makes all the difference. Just adding it in. You'll also notice I was on the floor. There's a line right here. Made it really, really easy. And by the way, you guys can ask questions as you go along, as we go along. If you go, well, what about that? Or how did you do that? Or whatever.
Are you shooting in like a fishbowl studio? Or is that just like a regular white backdrop?
Oh, that one there was one of the most amazing studios I've ever been in Orlando. And it's got the curve in the back, cyclorama or whatever it's called. So it's just all white floor, white everything. But that was there. This is in my studio, and it's really the same thing. The difference is it's only 14 feet wide, and that's it.
That is absolutely beautiful.
Well, thank you. This one is an
Hey.
actual real reflection. Go ahead.
Hey, Dave, it's Danny. I just joined in. Can you start from the beginning again? Can you go back to the beginning?
No.
I'm just, come on.
Yeah. Blah, 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 blah. Okay. Zip. Here, we're here. I'm recording it so you can catch the first part. You haven't missed a whole lot yet. Okay. This one I actually did as an actual reflection, and it was to help remind me that I have it set up to actually be able to do real reflections, not because my floor works. If I paint my floor, first of all, I can't make it this smooth. If I do, they'll be falling down in their high heels on a regular basis. So I have two 4x8 foot white reflective sheets, and I got them from Home Depot, and I think they're like $10, and they last about a year. And you can get down on the floor and you can clean them off with window cleaner or whatever you want, and it works. And when I painted the floor, it works for one shoot, and after that, it's got scuffs and you can't get them off.
Hey,
So
Dave.
there's some advantages to this. And of course, you can take off the boards if you don't want them for something or other. The
Dave,
advantage.
somebody was asking a question.
Dave,
Oh.
this is Mike. Do you know how thick those plexiglass sheets are? You don't know. Is it 1/4 inch, 1/8 of an inch?
Well, you can get whatever size works for you, but
Yeah,
to
okay.
me, those were always way too expensive and they scratch.
Yeah,
Um,
I'm just
so
curious.
the
because
nice
I've-
part about these boards is they wear out, but they're $10 for 4x8 sheet. And I put
Wow.
two of them together. So $20, they last me a year. They get a little dinged up or scratched really bad. It's hard to scratch them. But I just, I haven't figured out yet what to do with them other than cut them up and throw them away.
Other
that's,
than using them for the photography purpose that you're using them, what does Home Depot sell them for? So we would know where to find them in Home Depot.
there's a section back in the wood area that they have all kinds of different 4x8 foot sheets of wallboard and paneling.
So like paneling. Okay, cool.
Yeah, it's in the paneling section, and there's some that have seams in it, which they may be kind of fun too. But yeah, just plain white ones, and they're usually about $10. I was talking to somebody in Minnesota who is a photographer and said they figured out it's the photographers who were buying them, so they upped the price to $55, just because nobody else is buying them but photographers. And they said, well, you can't get them anywhere else, so they're $55. So I shot this one a little higher, as you can see. There's not a line, there's the shoes. This is the reason that I did it with this reflection. And I'm sure I used the, there's a brush in Lightroom. It clarifies things. It's not detail. I'd have to look again. It's one of, just a second, let me look.
Question, Dave.
Sure.
Can you go a little bit more in depth about what you're calling the line?
Okay, I can. The texture or clarity. Texture or clarity in Lightroom is what will bring this up a little bit. The shadow probably would too. Okay, yeah, let me find one that has a line. I can go to this one for a line. Okay, so for this one, there's a line right here. See between her hand and her legs and her foot, it's really a straight line. Yeah, there's a little bit of change, but not enough to be a problem. If, you know, if it's a little bit here and there, it's easy enough to get around. But if you've got that line, you can, as you'll see when we actually do some, you can cut this out, and you've got a line you can cut at, and then when we reverse it and stick it back, it lines up with this. Now, if her foot was way out here and her hand was way back there, that becomes a problem, cutting it and making it fit. We'll go more into detail of that as we're doing it. If
So
you
you're
have-
more interested in one focal plane then?
yes, yeah, and the lower you get on the floor, the better. The other
Your
thing with getting,
perspective.
yeah, that one's a little high. This one is like dead on, so you can see the line here. And if I take her and reverse her, which I did in that one picture, she looks correct because you're looking, the reflection of her would be the same as her from this angle. If I get up higher and do the same thing, I'm not getting the reflection from up higher would be from underneath her. And that's not what I'm going to see when I cut it and paste it down. Now, if you do one like this and you actually want to put in your own reflection, the way you do it is you copy this out. Forget the shoes, ignore the shoes. You copy this out, you copy it, paste it, flip it over, put it back in again, erase the area that the shoes are reflecting, and then you copy the shoes and you paste them back in over where the shoes are and bring in the reflection of the shoes. So you have to do them one at a time, which is why I try and do it if I can, you know, in the camera if it's at an angle like that.
Would it be easier to do the shoes separately?
Yeah, you'd have to do the shoes separately. You can't really take them out here because their foot's in the way. So I would do the whole thing, flip it around, then erase the shoes in here, and then turn around and copy the shoes from another layer and paste them, do the copy, paste, flip upside down and put them in separately. I did one once where the girl was laying there, but she'd put a pair of sunglasses out here. And I was so proud of myself because I did her and everything looked fine. Then I cut out the sunglasses and did the reflection of the sunglasses, and it looked perfect, unless you looked really close. Then it wasn't. If you can get the light proper, this one threw me. Remember how I said if there's enough light on the floor or on the wall, it's not going to show reflection because there's too much light there and it washes it out. Well, here I put the light in front of her, facing her, none of it hitting the floor. And of course, she reflects off the floor to me just fine. So that's something to watch for when you're like, okay, how would I light this and make it so the reflection shows up? It really takes more thought than you might think. This is a little before and after with a reflection in it, because there was the handcuff, just having it a second time. Heels are interesting because getting the front and the back to line up. If her foot was turned, so the heel was back here, that makes it more difficult to do. And we'll get into doing that when we actually are doing it. We kind of looked at that one already. By the way, that's an actual reflection. That's not done in post. It's enhanced.
Again, that's off your sheet that you got from Home Depot.
Yep.
I like your handmade reflections better than the natural ones.
Really? Yeah. Well, I can always tell because if they're a little wrinkly like this, then they're off of the sheet, you know, the sheets on the floor. Sometimes I'll do that and then I'll turn right around and erase that and put my own in. I did in this case because the sheet would not give me her detail of her face in the reflection. Because I really wanted her face to look, you know, be the center of attention of all of this. But if you look around, it's like, oh, there it is again. And, you know, but you can see right here, this is wrong. And that's not really the way her arm would be. So, you know, I probably didn't tilt this where I need to. In this particular case, there's a line It's a line that goes this way. So when I copied it, I had to paste it in and put it at an angle and stick it in. We'll play with that too. I'm doing it. This one was fun. Again, you'll notice that, she has her arm up in one and not in the other. So it's different, but I said, keep everything the same, but move your face and your arm. And she did. And it turned out pretty cool. And there's, again, the face is different between the two. Now these are a little weird when when one of them's not faded or blurred in any way, then it's not a true reflection. It's more of an artistic thing. Here's another example of where if I didn't have a little reflection, this is normal here. This is off the board. And I put in a background, and because I brushed the background in it in a light gray, I retained the reflection. If I was going to put a reflection in after the fact here, I would do it twice. I would do one and just bring her feet in. Then I would do another one just like it, and I would take her feet out and line him up, because you see there's no line here.
Was he already in the photo, or did you put him in there?
No, he was already in there. Yeah. And you can tell by the look on his face that they really are a couple. So anyway, there's no line here. So you've got to do them separately in order to get that out. And since you're doing it really light gray anyway, it's not like solid, you can get away with really messing it up a lot. Here's another one that had to be done at an angle because she's at an angle. So I had to cut it. I cut it this way, and then I turn around, tilted it. And we'll do that in a sec. There's another with the face looking in two different directions. But you can tell I'm laying on the floor taking that picture. So I've got that line again. Here's another example of they're lit up a lot right here. So the reflection is just down here. And that actually adds to the believability of it. If you're ever shooting in water, it's best to be in the water. Or in this particular case, I had the camera down to a sweat on the brow kind of level close to the water. It was like an inch off the water, taking her picture. And then I enhanced this right here just by with dodge and burn to bring it out. So when you're in Arizona, if you get a chance to do a water reflection, you actually want to do it with water. It's only 82 here because I'm at 6,000 feet, but in Phoenix it's 103 today, I think. So, which is why I'm not there. There's another one where she's pointed the other way. Again, though, you notice a line. Now, one of the things you can do, and I think I did it on this one because her hand was back a little ways. See how her hand looks a little weird? I probably used Liquify and stretched her hand out and made it closer to the other one. But again, I'm just playing with heads. This is a product shoot. So the important part was this right here. And I've done, I couldn't find it, but I've done it before where I put a tile floor in front of the model, and I actually let some of the tile floor reflect onto this, just barely. So it looked like it was reflecting the floor from in front of it. And
I'm sorry, I have to ask, is that graphics for the wings, or is that real wings that you put on her?
That's graphic.
Okay, that gives me hope because I see everyone doing those. It's gorgeous. Thank you.
Thanks. The lightning's not real either. Just kidding.
How come just her and her legs and the guitar are reflected and nothing else in the picture?
Well, that's because I copied it. I only copied this part because I knew that's all the space I had for down here anyway. So I just copied this part here and pasted it down here. Does that answer the question? If I made it longer,
yes.
Yeah, if I made it longer, then I would have probably put more of it in. There's another one again. You notice that there's really a line here. I think this may be one of them that we're going to edit today because they're not even. Okay, you actually can stretch out. You can see this foot is a little weird looking. Okay, it looks like it's been stretched, probably because it's been stretched to make it touch this one, because there isn't a line. You have to play games to make those go up. So those have probably been stretched with Liquify, because I think that's how we're going to do it. Just a few more here. This is a real one. I was in my living room. And oh, that's another thing with the floors. That's a wood floor. And yeah, it's reflective. And you look at it and say, yeah, it's a pretty good reflection. You know, it doesn't do bad. The closer you get to the floor, the more it turns into a mirror. I mean, mirror. I mean, you don't see the wood grain. You don't see the texture. All you see is a reflection of the model. So try that. If you've got anything that's smooth at all, lay down and see what kind of reflection you get off of it. You'd be shocked at how reflective some things are. This is an actual window. And this is, Kelly, you'll like this. This is all window light. He gets He gets all excited with window light. But we all know that. This window only works 4 months out of the year to give me this kind of look. There's not enough sun coming into that window. And the tricky part is that's a dual pane window. So I have to be really careful to not see the double reflection off of the two little panes. So you notice.
So Kelly, where do you meter that one? Off the reflection?
Oh yeah. This is you're actually taking this picture here. This right here becomes, you know, the side piece. This is what you're taking a picture of, is her. Now this one here is a little different. Now we're taking a picture of her and the reflection is out of focus. Now I'm doing all this. I don't have the exact, but it's probably at f1.2 or 1.4. So, you know, natural light and crank up the speed. Here's one more reflection off that window. So that's my favorite window for those months of the year. I always drag people out there if I'm doing it. Here's another one. Now I actually put in this reflection because there wasn't enough reflection on this kitchen cabinet thing here. And you can see I really kind of screwed up. Her hand looks a little weird there. And I'll show you how you can fake it and not have things like that show up pretty easy. This is a real reflection too. I was down on the floor. At my age, getting down on the floor. This is why I have an Apple Watch. When I get get one of those phone calls for auto insurance, I can hang up on them without getting up off the floor. That alone was worth it. Here's another window thing. Always look around for windows. If you're at a location, look everywhere to try and find a window and think about where the light's going to be coming from. If you don't have enough light from a window like this, or maybe it's nighttime, go outside, put the light outside and point it at the window and you'll get this kind of reflection. I had somebody that was shocked once because they came and said, "What are you doing?" Because they saw this thing flashing out in the front yard. I said, "Well, that's my light, and it's flashing through the blinds and giving me this reflection and all that," which is exactly what I wanted. This one I used motion blur on. I think I've got a couple I can show that on. I put motion blur on the one that I then turned around and blended in, which gave it an interesting look. Not realistic by any means. And this lady spent a year trying to get limber enough to do these kinds of shots. So had to do it. That's again artistic only because one side's just as clear as the other. This is one we're going to do today, so you're going to see a lot of that one. I had to cheat a lot to make that one work, so I'll show you the cheats too. This was one of the first ones I ever did You can notice the logo is completely different too. It's from back in 2014, I think. But probably the first one I did where she looked in two different directions. That was interesting. I decided to do half of it in black and white just to make it different. Again, the window. This one, I put in the things in the background, the light rays. I did all of this first, and then I reflected it because I wanted the rays to go in the opposite direction, like they should have. Sometimes it's good to just have a mirror. Now, if you don't have a mirror, don't go out and buy an expensive mirror. There are people redoing their bathrooms and stuff all the time, and all these contractors are trying to figure out where to throw these mirrors away. So if you know somebody who knows a contractor, to say, hey, look, do you have a bunch of mirrors that you're going to be pulling out soon from somewhere? Generally, they'll say, yeah, come get them. This is the address. And I've got probably 8 mirrors sitting around. So I could come up with all the mirrors that I want, because this one guy said, hey, you want some mirrors? You know, he was a contractor. Same thing. Notice the line, really important when it's that long. Okay, one more. This one has a story. That's real. That's not a, I didn't Photoshop that one. But my wife thought that was a little weird because that was actually shot in my garage up here. And it was all lit up. There's a black sheet behind her. And if you lighten this picture up, you're going to see shovels and rakes and stuff behind her because it was a pretty thin sheet. And there was a strobe, a speed light on each side of her. Okay. And I did that, and I wet the floor down with a hose, and of course squirted her a little bit because you can see she's a little wet. So she's laying on the floor doing this. My wife looks out the window, opens the door and says, what are you doing to that poor girl? Because she sees her laying on this gray concrete floor, you know, everything's wet. And of course the lights are on, because the lights aren't on in my picture, but they are for her. And she says, what are you doing? And I said, yeah, you'll see. And this is the picture that I got. But so there's a little story there. And but it was all about getting this wet and having the reflection actually real. I think I had to Photoshop out a crease in the concrete here somewhere. You know, those creases they put in to keep it from cracking. So anyway, so there's my show and tell. So let's do
when you're watering the floor for a shot like that, how much water are you just doing, like an atomizer, or do you got the garden hose out?
I got the garden hose. That's the cool part about doing it in a garage. You can put all the water you want in it because it's going to roll out the front before it's over with anyway. So I do any kind of rain shots or whatever. I do that in the garage because I don't have to worry about where the water goes. I have done rain shots in my studio, and I have a 3-ring kiddie pool that I'll stand the model in, and then I'll have it rain on her there. That works. Having a sump pump is helpful too, because then you can take that rain out. Okay, so here's, I've got several we're going to work with here. This is one of my favorites. And I just did this last summer. And it's so easy to do. Okay. First of all, where am I in this picture? Laying on her floor. And she's got like 5 kids, so it was pretty sticky floor. Anyway, what you got to do for art. Here's how easy it is to make a reflection. Okay, there's a line here that I'm going to do, and that's going to cause a problem because these don't line up well at all. But I don't care about them. I just care about her. There's a little bit of reflection there, but not enough. So, no, too high. There we go. I'm going to cut out at least as much as I need to paste into here. So I'm going to select that and I have a 3-button thing. CVT. You do a copy, paste, and then the T is free transform. Oh, free transform, there we go. Okay. So it's so easy because you select it. Normally you can go down and hold control down and hit CVT and you'll be right here. Okay, so now we have two layers. Top layer is really the same as the bottom layer, okay, of that section. Now I'm going to take that, go back into free transform, and I'm going to flip it vertically. And then I'm going to drag it down here and basically just line it up with her. Okay, so far so good. We can see that she's going to look fine. We can see that this is going to suck. It's not going to work well at all. But we have ways around that. Okay, so there we go. Now we're going to take this layer, the one that we just pasted in, and we're going to change the opacity. We're going to cut it way down. All right, she looks like a reflection now, huh? And I'm going to put in a mask layer, or a masking tool, anyway, mask layer. And I'm going to paint with black. I could do it with gray. In this case, it would be black. And we only want to play with people's eyes right here. This right here isn't working. These aren't lining up like they're supposed to, which is okay. So we're just going to paint that out. We'll paint it out over here too. Done. Now, if you really heavily analyze the reflection, they're still a little weird, but that doesn't matter because nobody's going to do that. If they do, they're not looking at the picture like you want them to anyway, right? And that's really kind of it. What you can do here too, if you don't want it to be that clean, you can turn around and blur that. So I'm going to pick this, and if I go up and do a blur, a Gaussian blur, too much. There, probably looks a little more real. But the big question there is, and I usually ask this question to people who comment on my stuff and get real nitpicky, is they say, that doesn't look real. I said, if they wanted real, they would have taken the picture with their cell phone and not used me. So now what can happen sometimes is if I didn't cut really close to the shoe, let me do that different, and I'll show you a problem that can show up. We're going to copy it again, but I'm going to do it higher than I should. I'm not doing it right on this line here. And when I first started, I couldn't get the line to show up properly. So we're just going to cut it too high. So see that, our feet are in it. So I'm going to do the Control C, V, and T. And there you go. Now I'm going to flip that. I wish they made a button for flipping that I could just keep going, but so we're going to flip that vertical. Oh, that didn't work like it was supposed to. Why didn't it flip it the other way?
Because you selected the bottom half.
Yes, it was supposed to be from the foot up.
You went foot down.
All right. Whenever I come up here and try and do this, the Zoom thing appears. Okay. I just did that to see if you were paying attention. Okay, let's go back to that.
Dave?
Okay.
The perspective on that, I mean, I would have zoomed in a little bit to take out the outlet on the end of the aisle and the end of the pole for the refrigerator, so you had the lines leading into her from the handles.
Yeah, I think maybe in the finished one that might be the case.
Is it better to do that before you start flipping, doing the transform?
You can. It doesn't matter which time you do it, really. And when it comes to getting rid of things like outlets, I hit delete and enter, and it does a fill for me, and it fills it with content aware. So I can whip through and clean up things really, really fast. But yeah, you're right. This wall thing here, it should be out of it completely. And then this edge here would be gone. Yeah, we could do that. But so I'm gonna cut it from above her feet. Okay, CVT.
You're doing the same thing.
What?
You're doing the same thing again.
Go
No,
up to
I'm-
your model.
What?
Go up to the model. Get off the floor.
Hmm. Oh, yeah. Okay, you're right. I'm screwing up. You are right. Okay. I'm still going to go too far. Now I'm going too far in the wrong other direction, okay? All right. Really? I'm really messing up here. Okay. Oh, I was cutting from another layer. Let's try this again. Okay, I've overshot. CVT. Good. All right. Kelly did tell me I'm supposed to look like I know what I'm doing. Okay, see, I can't see her feet to line it up properly. So I could turn the opacity on this down a little bit and line it up.
Oh, okay.
Okay, but we still have a problem because some of the bottom one is now up on the top one. Even if I change the opacity, up or down, it's still not right. Okay, so what you can do is you can paint that one out with a mask. So if you overshot, paint on. I thought I did the mask. All right, let's try this again. There we go. You can paint out the part that overshot. And of course, I'm going to take all of this out anyway over here. So even if you overshoot on it a little bit, you can get away with that pretty easy. Now, if there was something on the floor here that I also want a reflection of, I would have to then turn around and do this whole thing again and take it out of the original one and then put it back in again along with the reflection. It's a hassle and it's something you play with and you can do it. Does that all make sense? On how simple this really is?
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Reduce the opacity a little bit so we can see more of the stuff that the kids left behind. And as suggested, we can torque this around a little bit.
Dave, do you have a particular lens that you like for your reflections, a 35 millimeter or 24 millimeter?
I don't. I think most of the time, I'm probably using the, what is it? It's been so long since I shot now, I don't know what lenses I use. 24-105. I use the Canon R, and I think it's 24-105 right now. It was the 24-70, but when I was using the 5D Mark IV. So I'm sure this one was the 105. Where it was set, I don't know. So taking out the edges here, I mean, I could take out a little bit more there, but yeah, that's her. Every time I post this somewhere, somebody bitches and says, "You should have put some wine in the glass." And I always respond with, "She drank it all." Typically, it's really fruit juice anyway, in a shoot. All right, let's look at some other stuff here. This is the vertical one. So let's do this one. It's pretty easy to do. It's really the same as the other one, only vertically. I'm going to copy her out from this side. I've gotten to where I can trim this pretty well. It's one of those things that it's a skill that you learn. You copy that out, CVT. So now it's Where did the dodge and burn come from? Get rid of those. Okay, so now we got the layer on the top is exactly the same. If I do a free transform on that and go up here and flip horizontally, and then line her up over here. And then turn down the opacity. And even blur her a little bit. It's a little much. There we go. It's that easy. Now, one of the things, even on this, now this is in my studio, and there's a white wall here, and obviously the curve. If I have a light on just her, and it's gridded, so it really is just her, and the rest of the wall is black or dark because there's no light on it. If I get right up against that wall and I take a picture of her, I will get a reflection on the wall. It's all it has to do is a white wall. It's not even a reflective wall, but it shows a reflection of her. It's probably as good as this one. Yeah, but if the whole thing was white like this and it was all lit up and I put a light on her, it's not, we're never going to see a reflection because the light's covering it up. So, makes sense? Any questions so far?
Yes, Dave, can I ask a question about this picture here? Nothing to do with the reflection, but the grids here.
Mm-hmm.
How far is the light and the grid compared to the model?
Okay, the blinds that you see, the shadow, those blinds were actually right. They were less than a foot from her.
Okay.
They were in the picture. I had to take them out. The light was 20 feet back. It's a 27-foot deep studio. So the light was 20 feet back and had no modifier on it. It had to be as small a light, as pinpointy a light as I can get. That's the only way you're going to get this kind of light on a model. It works perfectly. If you're gonna, it doesn't have to be blinds. If it's lace or anything like that, putting the light far away and a pinpoint. And in this case, since it was so far away, I had it cranked up all the way. I adjusted from there. But yeah, that's all it took. Now, the cool part about reflection off of the wall, it probably was normal, but I'm sure I did more dodge in here because it's a white wall and it's going to reflect on her. And if it didn't reflect enough, I'm going to add more reflection, like on her, especially on her face. I doubt there was a lot of reflection because her hair and everything was really making quite the shadow in here. So I'm sure I lightened her face up in this because, well, that's what it's really about. Reality isn't part of it. So, like I said, if they want real, they can shoot with a cell phone, and then they'll throw a filter on it. Speaking of filters, I saw the funniest meme the other day. It was a picture of a girl, and then it showed the same girl with like an automotive air filter next to her. Said, this is the same girl with a filter. It's great. I love it. Okay. So now we're going to take her. I'm not going to do the rest of the picture. Well, I guess I have to do that with one of them. And we're going to paste that one on. They're not even the same size. I must have cropped this one. Sure, make my job easier here. Okay, so we're going to take this one and we're going to paste the other one in. Now to make it easier for us, now I'm going to leave it like this, just to show you what it's like at an angle. Okay, we've got the line. That's not a problem, although these hands aren't exactly on. We've got the line. That's good, but it's at an angle. So I'll show you how I would do that if I wanted to keep it at the angle. I'm going to go to this picture and I'm going to copy her out of it. Then I'm going to go back to this one. And I'm going to paste the other one in. And I'll change the opacity a little bit just because it'll be easier to work with. Okay. And I'm going to do free transform. Go up to edit, and I'm going to flip it vertical. And now I'm on free transform, so I can change the size. I typically would not mess with one without messing with, I mean, I would make it so they were together before I messed with them. Now they're not going to line up because she's at an angle, so I can turn this to match the angle. I got to look at the hands and then the heels. Needs to be just a little bit bigger, maybe. You can use your arrow key to do micro changes. That's close enough. That'll do. I'll show you one of the problems with them not lining up, not being in the line. So I'm going to say okay to that. And of course, I had to cut out more than I wanted to, so I would do a mask here, and I'll mask out the part that's covering her up from here.
I make a quick suggestion in the layer that you flipped over. Just turn that to multiply versus normal, and that'll make a lot of that white go away.
Oh, okay. Okay, so we lined her up, and she's at the angle that we want, but we have a problem. And you know what? If I just turn around and did this, finish it up, and put it out there, nobody would say anything. But this hand lines up okay. This hand lines up okay. These line up pretty well, not bad. This hand is further back, so it's wrong. There's no way that reflection would be like that. The hand would still, they would come together in the reflection. So you can do a couple of things. You can actually take liquefy on the original one and pull the hand down a little bit, liquefy on the bottom one and pull the hand up a little bit, and try and get them to line up without screwing with them too much, and it should work.
I didn't notice the hand as much as I noticed where her butt's aren't matching.
Yeah, she moved. I'd have to liquefy her butt too. Actually, the only thing you could liquefy would be the bottom one, because if you moved her hand, then that would look wrong too. Her hand has to be behind her. So we would actually take this one and liquefy her hand to match the other one. Trust me, it's not going to look right. But it's going to look righter. Okay, and we can, I think I probably edited her butt in the top one, but not the bottom one. Make it a little rounder. Shouldn't have to do that. She had it hanging there, so that was a problem. Now, of course, I would have to go back into the mask and mask out anything else that came across where it was, you know, if I brought it up and take out the lines in there. It's tricky. It takes a lot more work, which is why when you're setting up the shoot, you go, okay, we're gonna make sure that line is there. So you're gonna get on the floor. You're gonna do whatever you need to do to make sure that that line is as straight as possible, because that's harder to do. But you can see on the hand here, I mean, it's closer. If we back off here, that looks a lot more natural than it did before. you're all supposed to do this or something. So does that look good? Does that look better? Does anybody see any places where they're going to use something like the reflections and things?
Absolutely.
I've done shoots where the model was sitting at a glass table, and the way I lit the model, the reflection didn't show up as well on the glass table. So basically, I erased her out of the glass table, and then I turned around and copied her and pasted her into the glass table, and had that as a reflection. And it was really cool because I could then take out the edge. So then it even implanted more of the fact that, okay, it's a reflection of the table because it stops at the edge. Whenever you can play with the viewer's head a little bit that way, then you're good. Because as long as something's close, when I'm working on skin, there's a lot of times when there's a patch of skin that's just wrong, and I really have to smooth it out way too much to make it look like it needs to. As long as I leave detail in the rest of the skin, they assume there's detail in that skin and they don't see it because, well, they see detail. There must be detail everywhere. And it's just something that clicks in the head that's that way.
Dave, somebody asked, would you do your reflection after you're all done with the original subject editing, so therefore the reflection has all of those editing attributes added?
Yes and no. If it's one, I absolutely do. If it is the same image that I'm going to copy and paste down, like that first one that I did with her, I would definitely, got to find it here. I would definitely edit her completely first and then do it, because that way I don't have to edit this one. I certainly don't want to. But on the ones like this, where, okay, we don't see her face, but since she's looking in two different directions, it's two different pictures. So I would edit those pictures. Actually, I wouldn't edit the pictures. I would probably do them both unedited and then edit the whole thing as one piece. By editing them as one piece, you actually have a little bit of an advantage, because when you're dodging and burning, you can dodge and burn them separately. So let's say that the light's coming from over here in the picture, okay? I can't even really tell where it's coming. It's coming from probably where that wheel is, towards me a little bit in here. You can then turn around and edit it so the reflection looks different based on with the way the light's hitting her. So you can kind of start throwing in the bounced reflection look. You know how typically in a reflection, remember, when you're looking up and at a reflection of something, you're looking at the person from that direction, from below. So the higher you get, the weirder this is going to turn out, because it's just not going to look right. You're not looking like it with her right here. We're not looking at her from below. We're looking at her from straight on or a bit high, just like we are at this one. Okay, which is why our hand was weird. So yeah, it helps to be able to dodge and burn them together, because you can play. They don't have to be exactly the same that way. And you can start molding it more and more into a believable. Just don't go for 100% believable, because it's not. It's just not going to happen. It's the reflections, unless you're like right directly on the floor, you're not going to get it perfect. So it depends. Were there any other questions? I wasn't looking at questions at all. Either in the chat or in person, or I'm that good? No way.
There's no real questions in the chat. Everybody just saying how wonderful job you're doing and what a great class this was.
Oh, thank you. I'll send you the $5 later. So anyway, that's it. That's as easy as it is. And it's interesting how many places that you can do reflection. But if you're doing it on a location and it can be real, do it real. And real generally involves being close to a piece of glass. If I have a shoot somewhere and they have glass doors, especially if there's a window, there's light from outside, man, I am standing right next to that glass door and I've got the model right up against it. And, you know, I put her right in front of the frame so the frame's not in it. And put your head right on the glass, put it right on the glass. Now, look at me through the reflection, you know, so, and they do. And then that's the picture that I get. So that's all about figuring out in advance, this should work, this should work. Of course, if it doesn't, then it doesn't. You tried. You only knew one way whether it would work, and that's try it. But yeah, it works really good. And don't ever hesitate to put a light, especially if you're shooting at night. I'm sure Kelly can tell you that his window light shots don't work very well at midnight at all. But you can put a light outside and do the same thing. Put a big modifier on it. You're fine. You're going to get the bigger the modifier, the softer the light's going to be coming through the window. But yeah, you can shoot, do a shoot that looks like it was done at 3 in the afternoon, and it can be 10:30 at night and no light. One of my favorite stories, I don't have the picture to show, but it's a girl at maybe I did this in a different class too. There's a girl at a pool table, and I wanted her down on the pool table, and there were blinds in front of her on the other side of the pool table and stuff. There were blinds on the window, and I was putting a light outside to shoot through the blinds. Well, I put the light out there and everything, had it all ready to go, and I had forgotten the trigger or something. And I came in, and she was standing there doing the pose, and they had these strips of light on her face. I went, oh my God, this is perfect. So I, crank down my f-stop and do my thing, and I used this natural light of these stripes going across her face. I wasn't about to spend the time to try and figure out where these stripes were coming from. I'm taking that picture now. So I'm shooting her, and this is fine. I said, move your head here. This is great. Doing our thing. And then when I was done, I went, where the hell did that come from now? So I went over and looked through the slats, and my car was parked about 20 feet out, and the sun was going down behind the house, and it was reflecting off the door handle through those blinds and giving me the perfect picture. There's no way I could have done that, in my own head. Now I probably would have put somebody out there with a mirror and says, all right, you got it now. That would have been perfect. But it was actually a glint of the door handle. So it was a light that was probably this big, but super bright coming through, and got the shot. I'll actually find that shot and post it in the group so everybody can see it. But it's the happy accidents are amazing. They're great. So anyway, no action is nothing. This is it. You select it, copy it, paste it, flip it, and play. And that's
Hey, so Dave, I wanted to show you real quick. If you could let me share my screen.
Sure. Stop share. There we go.
All right. So I want you brought up earlier about you having a keyboard shortcut for the flip.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So I wanted to, talk real quick about that. So everybody can see my Photoshop.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Dave. All right. So in Edit, you'll see a keyboard shortcut option. Let me go ahead and cancel this. So under Edit, you'll see keyboard shortcuts. So you go into keyboard shortcuts. In this case, it's an application menu, because that's where image rotation is found, is an application menu. So you get application menu, you have choices from tools and everything else. You can make your thing run exactly the way you want it. And then you go into image, and then you go down to the rotate. Hold on, let's get down to rotate here. Image rotation, and you can flip your choice. So in here, you set what you want it to be. So you say, I want it to be Control, Command, F. I did it just as a show you. I did flip horizontal as Control, Command, F. So once I did that, and let's say I look at this image, I hit Control, Command, F, and guess what? It just flipped. So you can do the keyboard shortcut as you wish. You could set up almost every single thing in your Photoshop as a command keyboard shortcut by using it that way. Anyway, I just wanted to bring that up.
Very
I was
nice.
I was waiting for somebody to do that actually.
There you go, buddy.
I put the hook out there. Actually, I must have done something like that at some point because my delete key brings up the fill, the content aware fill. So
Really? That's pretty
yeah,
cool.
so I made it so I can select something, hit delete and enter, and it does the fill. Now, if you use the fill for anything else other than content aware, then you have to remember, why did it just turn it gray? Because, well, that's the last thing you did with it.
Yeah, I would never want to use a delete key for any keyboard shortcut because I'd be screwing everything up.
Well, now I can't use it without it because that's what I've learned. You know how it is. Old dogs, new tricks don't work.
Everybody loved the presentation. Excellent session. I know you recorded it. So just my personal thanks, Dave, for continuing on with our webinar series in the group. I think this has been really good for everybody, both, you know, as a technical photographer's perspective, as an artist perspective, and even as a mental health perspective during COVID-19. So thank you very much for being a part of that process.
Oh, well, thank you for the invite.
Thanks, Dave.
Thank you, Dave.
I'm Dave. We're going to be
Thank you so much, Dave.
next thing.
Thanks, Dave. Great job, Dave.
Thank you, Dave.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Dave.
See y'all later. Have a good one. Stay safe.
Good night.
Bye.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Hi, guys.
Bye, John Boy.